party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else!
We don't want to know!
We're dedicated, yes!
To our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad!
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville!
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast TV party tonight. For real this time, not for play. Last night we were doing triple feature and I played the TV party theme. That's like the first time in 16 years of doing this. Anyway, this is a premiere Radulich Broadcasting podcast and I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show for real, not for play is Lost in Space. Season 3, the finale season, brought to you by the good people at Netflix, among others, such as Sazama, Sharpless Productions, Applebox Entertainment, Synthesis Entertainment, Clickety-Clack Productions, and Legendary Television. And my legendary co-host tonight, who has been on this journey with me, he's as lost as I am. Maybe not in space, maybe so. Who knows? He'll tell us now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been David Wright week since the beginning of December, and David Wright week goes on. Hello, David Wright.
Hi, I like to think of it as like the TV Party Tonight Winter Marathon 2022. Instead of like swimming, cycling, and running, it's like Lost in Space Season 3, Cobra Kai Season 4, and Witcher Season 2.
Yep. Yeah, we've had quite the run here. I think it started with Foundation, now this, and then, yeah, you're right, Cobra Kai, and then The Witcher, and then Agretzko, and then finally you can go back to your wife. Yes. Keeping you hostage in podcast land.
Well, some of those shows she likes to watch too.
That's good.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed Lost in Space. It started off a little slow with season 1. Season 2 was hot bananas, and this finale season, which was shorter than I thought it would be, I was geared up for a 10-episode drop.
I was so happy when it was 8. It's like, oh, good, I could actually finish it on time.
Oh, that was the funny thing, because like I would watch. I don't like people, and I've stopped eating.
Me too.
I know, shocker. And so I started eating my lunch in a secluded break room away from my workstation instead of the break room that's directly attached to it, where the bathrooms are and everyone walks in and out of. And so, like, I would go in there and go on TikTok or listen to a podcast or something, and everyone would come into the break room and want to talk to me. I don't know why. I hate everyone, and I don't want to talk to anyone, but they all want to talk to me. So then I used to go.
Sounds like a really good sitcom setup.
It really is. Mark hates everybody, and everyone talks to Mark.
Yeah, and everyone loves Mark.
Starring Tony Danza. So I would go to the break room on the other side of the building, but then they would find me and ask me to deal with crises that were erupting, at my place of business. And I was like, God damn it, I can't get any peace.
You should start charging them.
to work. Yes. So long story short, I found this really small like break station in between another area of work at my job, and people come in and out of it, but like really briefly. Like they come in to get a soda and they run out again, and nobody talks to me. It's perfect. All of that to say, I watched Lost in Space while I was at work on my break, and I was like, okay, I got to get as many of these in as I can, because I got to get 10 episodes done in order to be on time for this podcast. And I'm looking like, how many, and I've done a couple of these now. And I'm like, how many more of these do I have left? And it's like, holy crap, we're almost done. So I was pleasantly surprised. It was a nice, tight 8-hour movie to wrap up this season. What do you think?
Yeah, pretty much agreed. I don't think having an extra 2 episodes would have helped them that much. I think it would have started to drag.
Yeah, this season,
it didn't feel compressed, but it didn't feel
I
stretched.
I thought, they had to get the kids off the planet. They had to find their parents. They had to eventually get to Alpha Centauri. They had to figure out what they were going to do with SAR and Scarecrow and Robot, and they did. They did all of those things very, very swiftly, I thought. They didn't linger in one area for too long, and I think that was like my first problem with like the very first season of Lost in Space, is that it takes a hell of a time to get started. And like, I think they were trapped in the ice for like 12 out of 10 episodes. That went on forever.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of planet variety in the first season. I think there was two planets they went to.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly. It's been a while. I don't know about you, but I was like blanking a bit on some characters in this season. It's like, oh, I think they were in the previous season, but I can't remember who they were.
Yeah, there was some level of detail here that I kind of just went with and used context clues to figure out. But like, Judy's dad, I thought Judy was just straight adopted.
Yeah, same. I didn't realize Maureen was actually her biological mother.
Neither did I. And that's also a difference from this season to the first season, was the use of flashbacks. They limited use of flashbacks to tell a very specific detail about something, and then they were in the contemporary story, as opposed to the first season where they were flashing back constantly. And I felt like there was as much story in flashback as there was in the contemporary, which I did not love. Like, Lost in Space is definitely a series that got better over time.
Yeah, I mean, first seasons are usually a bit rougher than the following seasons because, know, the show's still finding its feet. But yeah, I think it's a show that certainly rewards you for sticking with it a little bit at the start. And once it gets moving, then it's hard to stop.
For sure.
Season 2, though, I thought kind of really kicked off pretty quick, though. It's like episode 1, we're turning this spaceship into a sailboat. It's like, okay, I'm on board.
Yeah, no, season 2 and season 3 were fantastic. And I have to say, like, season 3, a lot of television shows don't always stick the landing. Like, it ends and you're just like, ugh, this is where the trip took us, huh? Well, I'm not happy. But I have to say, and I don't want to get too far ahead. We're going to talk just in general about the show. We're not going to go episode by episode. But not to jump around too much, but I have to say, like, the way that they ended the show, especially the last 2 or 3 episodes with what Will does, were absolutely phenomenal. And it's so funny. I'll just talk about this now.
Sure.
So the big thrust of season 3, other than, the kids were separated from their parents and they now have to get off the world, find their parents, and go to Alpha Centauri. And everyone is being pursued by SAR and the evil robots, who all want to get to Will and will destroy all the humans if given half an opportunity. So a lot of this is, how do we get to Alpha Centauri without the robots finding us? That's the main thrust.
Yeah, we're lost in space with killer robots chasing us.
Right. Yeah. There's that, like, a ticking clock and a real sense of urgency, which helps the show a lot.
Yeah. Though if you're going to have like a big bad evil robot that's trying to find and kill people, maybe don't name it with an acronym that usually means search and rescue.
I was thinking about, they kept calling it SAR, and all I could think about was like the human virus.
Yeah, like SARS.
Yeah, that was it.
Because we don't think about viruses enough these days.
No, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, for those of you listening in the future, it's like 2022 here, and we're still trying to get out of this damn pandemic.
Yeah, that is quickly becoming endemic, as Robert Winfrey gleefully likes to remind us. Yeah. Anyway,
I'm happy he's happy.
Yeah, there's bad news. Yay. Anyway, what I was getting to was, one of the things I liked about this season was they gave Will a lot to do. Will has a lot of both physical and emotional growth, and there comes in over the course of the first handful of episodes, like the first half of the season, he discovers how the robots communicate with each other and what controls their programming and whatnot, and he finds the civilization that had them under control in the first place. This all leads to Will getting the idea that he could somehow get through to SAR. He's like a woman. He's going to change him. Don't you understand? He's going to win the battle through the power of negotiation and speech. He got this lesson from Wonder Woman in Wonder Woman 1984. Don't you understand? It fails. He gets stabbed. And I'll tell you, this is why I brought this up. I did not have an emotional reaction to him getting stabbed, and I'll tell you why. I'm too cynical of a television watcher now. I knew there was no way he was going to stay dead. This is too far in the future to get a mere stab in the heart to kill a character off. Oh,
it's like watching T'Challa getting snapped away in Endgame. It's like, yes, the lead of the highest grossing film of the year that has smashed untold box office records. They're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, no. Yeah, as much as I loved Infinity War, that was why the ending of that, like, to a large degree, like I appreciated the balls on them to let the bad guy win and just end the movie. You know, he goes off to the farm to live deliberately, and you know, and you have Captain America like, oh god. On the other hand, I was like, I know this is part one of a sequel. You can't fool me. So
yeah, I know they're all going to come back except for Ben Parker, but. Yeah. But yeah, it's more like how do they solve the problem and how do the characters react because they don't know that everyone else is coming back. But yeah, I get your point there. It's you become a bit too genre savvy for it to really. Well, it was like that when we had the big reveal that like Sar killed the creators of his robots. It's like, wait, this is a surprise to you? Do you live in a world where science fiction doesn't exist? You know, it's like, oh, there's a bunch of killer alien robots here, and we just found like the remains of the civilization that built the robots. You know, like my first idea of what could have possibly happened is, I bet the robots killed them. You know, like the same thing happened with the Orville. It's like, wait, you're surprised? Like, robots don't build themselves. Someone has to actually do the first step there.
Right. So I was not surprised but here's where I was going with this. What did get me, what I did have an emotional reaction to, and take a drink, everybody, because, you know, take a drink every time Mark has a visceral emotional reaction to something having to do with parenting. When Will's dad, now mind you, they had just connected. Whatever their issues, and I vaguely remember them having some, you know, I think the way Lost in Space starts is Will's dad and Maureen are just, John is his name. John and Maureen are not getting along, and I think Maureen is about to yeet the kids off the planet to go to Alpha Centauri without him.
Well, I think it's like
not without me, you're not.
Yeah, well, John is a soldier, so he's been on deployment doing whatever is happening in the universe at the time there. And Maureen's a very, like, authoritarian isn't the right word really, but yeah, she's very much in control of things. Like she's the one, you know, like she's got the kids' schedules all mapped out. You know, she's very driven and controlling, not in a creepy, nasty way, but yeah, I think all those kids are a little suffocated by their mom a bit with how driven she is. And then John comes back into this environment, and you know, he's the outsider, and yeah, it's kind of like the first season is very much the family putting itself back together, and yeah, John and Maureen kind of learning how to value each other and establish that sort of couples dynamic of, you know, becoming partners again in their relationship.
It reminded me of something else which is escaping me for the time being. It'll probably come back to me probably while you're talking, and I'll just blurt it out.
Yeah.
But there was something else where, like, oh, you know what it was? It was The Force Awakens. It was Han and Leia, where, you know, they got to a point in their marriage where they loved each other, but they didn't like being around each other. And so their way of dealing with it was Leia went off to start another rebellion, and Han went back to smuggling.
Yeah, I mean, also their only child like murdered a whole bunch of children.
I couldn't remember if that was before or after.
Sorry. I think Ben turning to the dark side and killing all the Jedis. That was sort of the inciting incident that really kind of
before his uncle tried to kill him. Let's not forget that.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. This is a Lost in Space podcast. We could do a post-mortem on the sequel trilogy, another podcast.
No, we won't. So my point is, by comparison, I think Maureen and John had kind of fallen into the same thing as Han and Leia, where it was like they just kind of hit a point where Maureen was like, I think we'd be better off without you. Neither of us want to be in this marriage anymore. We don't.
I think it was more like Maureen was sort of, I don't really need you. You're sort of the third wheel. I've got everything. I've got everything on my own. It wasn't to the point of, I'm a strong, independent woman who don't need no man, but it was just,
can I say she's like we're longing for like strong, badass women to the point where we have to like gender swap people and all of this other stuff. Like Maureen's perfect, like right up there with Ripley and Sarah Connor in terms of like badass, non-hypersexualized adventure women. I think
to a point. Yeah, she's great, but like she's not. I wouldn't say she's an action hero. Like she's very smart, and she's willing to get thrown around by the forces of nature.
This isn't an action show. They're not ninjas.
Not so much.
They solve problems with science.
Yeah. Whereas John the soldier, he's more like he's the guy that you call when something's trying to kill us. We need to break this down into the tactics. But he also sort of brings that sort of way of being able to think in a crisis and deal with those situations and the people. And yeah, it's like he's more wanting to reconnect with the family. He's just not sure how.
Right.
And Maureen's not really in a hurry to let him in.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of through the adversity of the first season, like starting to realize, like, no, like he can contribute more to this than just lifting heavy things.
Right.
And
he's here for more than just shooting at stuff. So where I was getting to was John and Will like connect in a really, really beautiful way, the way fathers and sons should connect. And you can see a lot of the walls just going to crumble between them, and they love each other, and they are father and son. And just as soon as that happens, Sar stabs Will, and I'm like, okay, he'll be fine. Like they'll throw him in a Bacta tank, another Star Wars reference. Take a drink.
Yeah.
And they'll figure it out. They'll science him all up. He'll be fine. They'll give him some potatoes. It'll work out just fine. Where I lost my crap, and like, thank God I was in a, like, secluded away from people again, because I started to ugly cry and I really needed to pull myself back together again, is when John starts punching Robot. And like, you were supposed to protect him. You were supposed to stop this from happening. And he's just punching the poor Robot's just like, yeah, I'll just sit and take it. Yeah, I think bawled.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not yet a parent, so I don't quite have that here. Like I understand that in relation to marriage, like, the way, like that bond, but yeah, I haven't gotten there yet. But yeah, as he was punching the robot, I realized he's not actually mad at the robot. He's mad at himself. He's just punching the robot to vent his frustration. And the robot seems to be aware of that. And it's just, like, let it out, man. I'm okay. I'm made of alien metal. Do your worst.
Yeah. It's like when you see like a woman kind of in that same set of circumstances where she's just pounding on the man's chest and the man just takes it. And you're like, okay,
I understand. It's not really about me. You're processing something and you need something to like, if I go home and I've had a really shit day and I punch a pillow, I know the pillow's not done anything wrong. It's just being a pillow, but I needed something to hit that I won't break to just get that energy out of me. And I think in a lesser well-written show, the robot would have become dejected and left them thinking that they don't love it anymore or something like that. Whereas this is season 3. Like, we've been through a lot of stuff. We don't trust the robot. So, the robot knows its place, and it kind of has a better understanding of the dynamics.
Yeah. I loved Will this season. I thought, in terms of the hero, the hero that throws himself into danger, saves the people around him, in combination with something that I think is a real lost art in terms of science fiction. I think, you probably watch more science fiction than I do. But so when I say this, it's just based on the kinds of things that I watch. Like, real science fiction isn't necessarily people shooting at stuff and punching their way through things. It is solving problems through science or fictional science. Either way, like, every episode, like, from the problem with the kids was the engine was busted and they needed raw materials to fix the engine. So either mine ore, smelt ore, rebuild engine with smelted ore, so they could then take off and go to Alpha Centauri. And I'm like, this is fantastic.
Yeah, holy crap! You're mining and smelting titanium into a highly precise, the engineered, engine nozzle. Like, that's pretty crazy stuff to do. I mean, yeah, they have future technology like a really fancy 3D printer, but even still, I'm like, wow, like, I couldn't do that.
Well, it's a show that I think really knows that the audience for this is, the show is going to be what it's going to be. It's going to be a pure science fiction show, and either people are going to go with it like us, or they're going to abandon it because what they really want is fantasy set in space. That's not the foundation. That's not what this is. And that's why one of the reasons why I love it so much is I love the idea that every problem that they're confronted with is a problem, is a puzzle they have to solve. There's a scene where so the kids, again, through science, save their parents from the robots. The robots are trying to get aboard. I think that they're after an engine. And they're trying to get aboard the human ship so that they can scan them and figure out where Alpha Centauri is and just deal with the humans once and for all, I think, is the overall plan. And somewhere along the line, they want to get SAR wants specifically Will Robinson because, this is now about revenge. This is become personal.
Well, we learned that he wants Will because Will was able to make the robot break its programming and become its own its own person, basically.
Yeah.
So it's like, what the heck? What did you do?
Yeah, he needs to figure out how the magic works. So he needs Will for that.
Yeah, so he can get rid of it.
Right. And so everything is in service to that. It's a new problem that they solve. And so like the kids show up with their warp engine, and they save the parents, and all the parents except for the Robinsons go off to Alpha Centauri. The Robinsons, realizing that the robots are hot on their tail, need to lose the robot, so they can't go directly to Alpha Centauri. They'll get everyone killed. They yet again crash on yet another planet.
Yeah, another random planet. They're lost in space again.
They're always lost in space. But the thing that I'm citing specifically is that when they crashed, everyone got separated. And Maureen specifically was in a situation where something was cracked in the hydraulics of her chair. I really need to be like very specific about this, because I was
confused by this.
Okay.
Like, so you have weight sensors in your ejection seat that fire the engines when there's no one in the seat. I'm not sure what the logic is of that. Like, I'll confess, like, ejection seats are kind of complicated things that there's a lot more to them than just rocket and chair. But I'm not sure how the logic behind that. I don't know if it got messed up or something, but anyway.
They needed a situation for Maureen to be helpless, and for Judy to be in charge, and for Maureen to see that. That was the tension. That was the drama.
Yeah, I get that.
You're a little in the weeds, Robert. Let's get back to the central thing here.
It didn't destroy the show for me. It was just kind of every time I switched, it's like, how does this work? Like this, for a show that tries to be somewhat realistic and logical about most of the things that goes on in it, this is a bit kind of I don't think this thing works the way that the writers thinks it does. But
anyway. Well, I'm not a science person, as I'm sure everyone who's listened to this show has guessed. Science was not my strong suit in high school. It was English. So I didn't care. It was a magic chair, and it was busted. And essentially it was a landmine. And if she got off of it, they'd all die. That was the problem that Judy then had to solve. And by the way, she has to solve it with one arm. And I love that. I love that the show organically created situations where characters could interact and have tension and drama between them, but there was also a solvable science problem for them to deal with. And that's like a lot of the show.
It's very Martian, like The Martian.
Yeah. I've raved about that movie.
Oh, I love that movie. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. It's our review is actually in the archives from when it was in theaters. Hint, plug. Anyway, I have to say, like, I think in seasons past there were some characters who were okay. I didn't love them. I know Judy and Penny. I think I've talked about this before. Like, they're not my favorite characters on the show, and I loved both of them, especially Penny this season.
I think they had a lot more to do this season. Like, they gave Judy and Penny, like past seasons. Yeah, it's more John and Maureen, and then Will and the robot. This one, we get more Penny, more Judy, and also a lot more Will and a lot more robot. Like, I think this is the robot's best season, but they also gave Penny and Judy quite a bit more to munch on.
Well, not only that, but like Penny has a lot of growth this season. So Penny is the one with the big heart, and she's the one who deals with the teenage drama, and that is certainly a big part of what she's doing this season. She's trying to figure out which boy she wants to be with, or if she wants to be with the boy at all. But she has a great hero moment, and it goes to her character in, I think, a big way that I really, really liked. So the robots have landed on Alpha Centauri, and there's yet another problem is that they have a shield system that only one person knows how to use, and it was the guy abusing the robot. So
and he's dead now.
And now he's dead. He got his comeuppance. So they need to activate this thing, and there's a whole bunch of quirky science things they have to do to get that done, which I was really it's essentially it's voice activated, and you have to, in his voice, say these key words, and then the thing will turn on. And they're like, it was such a future thing, but it was a future thing that sort of satirizes or mocks modern culture. So they go to the guy's wife's house.
I don't know what they're complaining about. He didn't have to include any special characters or numerics in those.
They go to the guy's wife's house, and they're like, you have any recordings of him, that we can just peer through so we can find keywords he might have said? And the wife goes, well, I don't think he said those words specifically. And they're like, no, we're pretty sure he did, just not all in one sentence. And there's a whole scene of her and Grant, Judy's dad, who she finds in space, who's been in like cryo sleep.
Yeah, more on that later, I assume.
Yeah, you can get to it as soon as I'm done here. And they're just going through, they're essentially like flipping through audio recording, audio visual recordings to find the words. And I'm like, in real life, that would be super tedious. They'd be there forever trying to.
So I'm kind of surprised with like a planet full of like scientists and the best of the best, if someone couldn't just like create some sort of audio search algorithm. I mean, let's be honest. All of our cell phones and audio devices are recording us and looking for certain words anyway. I'm pretty sure.
I was surprised that wasn't the solution, because I'm like, are they really doing this manually? Am I supposed to believe that within an hour of having to, with the hour window they had to solve this problem, because like the aliens are like right there, they need to get this shit up and running now.
Yeah,
they managed to find 5 words in an infinite amount of recordings. I'm like, that's more unbelievable than your issue with the chair. But I was like
nowadays it would just be Alexa, override code Bezos Alpha Omega 1. Tell me all the times Mark has said the words, yada yada yada.
What's funny about that? Now that you mention it, they have a service like that. It's just keyword searches. It's not audio. But I would imagine there, in the year that this takes place, there's a LexisNexis for. And I know that because LexisNexis is what Ann Coulter does to do half the research for her books.
Yeah.
Like how many times like this keyword has been in the New York Times or some shit is what she uses it for to make points. I would imagine in the future they would have a LexisNexis for audio and visual recordings. This was a little contrived now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, but again, just for the utility of the story, we don't need to see that. Like, you don't want to watch people coding algorithms. It's not that exciting when you're actually looking at it.
Sure. Anyway, they have to get the shield up, and there's a great bit where they get the shield up in the ta-da nick of time, but the robots. But you ever try to make a yellow light? the robots like hit the gas and they're like, ah! And they crash their ship. They kamikaze right into the planet. Now all the robots that survived the crash. Now I'm just imagining like it cut to like the cockpit where SARS just like pedal to the metal, and you just have like the other robots backseat driving. We are not going to make it. It's like, we're going to make it. It'd be like Klingons from Star Trek. They're just like, sir, the shields are going up. Hit the gas, Korg. But sir, it just hits them out of the seat. Yeah, today is a good day to die. Kapla. Yeah, exactly. So they crash land, and the robots. I want to see Worf taking a driving test. They dust themselves off, and they go hunting for Will. Now, a couple of them though have been buried under rocks and have been split in half and all this other stuff. And so Penny has this really great hero moment, and heroes are, and as Penny shows us through her actions, Penny has this really great moment where she recognizes that they may be a collective following orders, but there's a way to reach them by showing that humans are mostly harmless. Wink. I got that reference. Yeah. So one of them is like buried and can't move, and I think she had asked out loud, "What did Will do to connect with this robot?" Will saved its life, is what Will did. And that was the first season. It was the first episode. Yeah. So Penny saves this robot, and the robot reacts the same way. Thank you for saving me. I now owe you a life debt. So as long as they don't find out we play cricket. Yeah. So now the robot is beholden to her and willing to help her out. And I think either the robot communicates this with some other ones, or they just start helping the other robots. I don't remember which one it is. But now we have this. They realize, hey, if we help the robots, then they won't kill us anymore, and they'll fight for us. Right. Okay. And it works. And so the robots, the newly turned robots, start fighting the bad robots. But the whole reason I went into all that was that's like Penny's best moment in the entire season. As a bit ditzy as she tends to be at times, she comes through and I'm glad the writers like included her as one of the people who gets to do something really, really big in the season. All right. Yeah, and it didn't feel contrived. No, it didn't. It felt very organic. All right. Before I talk too much, go ahead and talk about Judy and Grant. Yeah. So I thought that they did a good job of sort of showing those two getting to know each other. Like they kind of, I was really happy they skipped sort of the cheapo typical drama you would expect in that situation.
You're like, you were never there for me, Dad. It's like, oh, but I was on space. That's no excuse. Or
they didn't go the other way and make him a dick, where it's just like, oh, I never wanted a daughter, and I don't want one now, bitch.
Yeah, he's not like he's not like Tommy Lee Jones from Ad Astra. Oh, such a bad movie.
I've not seen it. It's not good.
Yeah, you're not missing anything. I waited for the movie to get exciting, and then the credits started. Yeah.
Hey, you know what might have helped Ad Astra be a better movie?
What?
Can't you do a little better than what?
Okay. Could it be like some sort of program that would help you write better online?
Well, it's not LexisNexis. Even better, it's Grammarly. For you listeners of TV Party Tonight, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Suppose you have a robot that's cut in half and you want it to turn good. Grammarly will help you put that robot back together, and you can talk to it, and it'll help you. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M network to download Grammarly for free.
Yeah, all right. Does not actually repair robots or turn them from evil to good.
Yeah. Read the fine print.
The Wrestling to the Max networks will not be held legally liable for any difficulties arising from use of Grammarly and or killer robots.
I'll send all hate mail to sgarmer@gmail.com.
Okay. Yeah. But no, like it's I appreciate how Judy doesn't try and it doesn't jump right out at him with, you're my dad. She kind of and she's about to. Then he's like, I've had enough. Enough bombshells for one day. What with it being 20 years in the future, and there's a colony ship with faster than light travel being chased by killer robots. I'm done for the day. No more bombshells.
Yeah, no mas. I've had all the reveals I'm gonna have. Thanks. Yeah. And Judy handles it well. And then then after getting to know each other a little bit more, and he's a little bit more settled, and they have this journey together, then she's like, look, because he starts talking about how Maureen was an astronaut, and Judy starts to blame herself for being born. And
that happens Maureen a little later, but I think this is kind of the initial kickoff for that. But we're still into dealing with I found my original biological father.
Right. Well, the reason I brought that up was he's talking, and she's at a point where
she's kind of quizzing him, what do you miss the most from Earth? Hoping that I assume she's hoping that I left my daughter behind, or my pregnant
that he wife, but he didn't even know about. He didn't know she was pregnant. He didn't know he had a daughter. So I think she gets to a point where she realizes that she can't keep this from him anymore. He's gonna the longer she keeps this from him, when he does find out, he's gonna feel more and more like an asshole.
Again, in a worse show, it would have been someone else spills the beans, and then he gets all resentful that she didn't tell me in time.
Yeah, he slips in a puddle of her DNA and realizes he had a daughter or something.
Yeah, or they get back to the base, and Penny's like, "Oh, Judy, you found your father." He's like, "What? Right. He's like, "Oh, was I not supposed to say that?" Teehee.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. None of that crappy, soapy melodrama. Mm-hmm. This is about space and sciencing the shit out of things.
The other thing I was really pleasantly surprised by was that Grant wasn't Paul Reiser from Aliens. He wasn't secretly harboring ill will towards anyone. He didn't turn out to be a villain later on. He's just a helpful dude.
Yeah. There wasn't the reveal it was me all along. I set loose the robots or something like that. Right. There was a bit of I had a secret mission. We already knew that there was some alien technology to find, but again, it wasn't anything nasty or evil. It was just we didn't really want to cause a public panic by saying, oh, by the way, guys, we just found out evidence of extraterrestrial life. No idea if it's friendly or not. Let's just go and figure out what we're dealing with and ease people into that. He was just a good helpful guy, and and when Judy did finally break the news to him, he didn't get overly emotional or resentful. Right. He just put out his hand to sort of welcome her. He didn't jump into oh, I have to be your dad now.
Right.
Okay, this is new. this is awkward for the both of us. So
nor does he have like the hots for Maureen and try to break up her marriage with John.
Yeah, or even
and John doesn't punch him dead in the face for being a man with a penis who used to be with Maureen.
Yeah, and he doesn't even try and like usurp John as as the father role. It's just kind of like, again, he's like, okay, like I'm gonna be friendly, like I accept this turn of events,
right?
And we're just kind of gonna step by step figure it out together, sort of thing.
It's fun to watch a show with grown-ups and intellectuals
who actually act like real people and not just petulant liberal arts students who are upset because their parents were really nice and bought them everything and wanted them to succeed in life and taught them to get jobs.
This is not a Greg Berlanti show for sure.
I don't feel like this is like the writers just writing down their therapy sessions or anything like that.
No one's working through anything.
They're working through killer robots and bringing the family.
No. I mean, like they're not working through their own. This isn't the Matrix Resurrections. They're not working. This isn't a therapeutic exercise. They're just writing a killer show.
Yeah.
So I just real quick on Judy, and then we can move on. I want to talk about Smith this season. Judy, I think she was a little insufferable in previous seasons. The little bit that you had to deal with her. Like Penny could be annoying. I enjoyed Penny's energy. And Will was always just a frightened, shaky leaf that I didn't like him a lot either. And everybody like steps it up. Judy has an assuredness about her without being a twat.
Yeah, I think it's because she's been captain for a year now, right. So she kind of she's grown into the like hey, I can do this. I don't need a parent holding my hand anymore. I miss them, but I now know that I've got the stuff to be a leader on my own.
Yeah, she's also not trying to. I think in seasons past, the previous 2 seasons, she was always trying to like show up everyone around her. I'm Penny the doctor, Maureen's daughter, and I have to be the bestest of the best of everyone. And that's what I think what made her insufferable. And here,
well, even they addressed that.
Comfortable.
Yeah, they addressed that when like Maureen's trapped in the chair. She says, like I was always just trying to live up to you or surpass you, and Maureen was like, that's never what I expected of you or wanted for you. And she's like, well, that's what you were saying, just not verbally. Like that was always the attitude you.
And by the same token, I think I was a lot happier with way more because Maureen is usually like. I wouldn't have described her as insufferable. She didn't bother me like that, but it was definitely
she's very driven and she's not the most.
I was gonna say,
I hate to use this word empathetic of people, not in a nasty way. It's just she's that type. She's very driven.
I was gonna say, how like in the chat you're all talking about WandaVision, and I'm trying to schedule out for the next 3 years a podcast, and I don't have time for anyone's freaking nonsense. And like I just don't have any patience for it. That's Maureen. Maureen's like, I got shit to do. I don't have time for any of this. And that was always like her portrayal in the previous 2 seasons of going like, I'm so much smarter than a lot of the people around me. I'm the one having to come up with solutions. I have to push. And a lot of things are just taken out of her hands. And so the actress who plays her is really just struggling with with having her hands cut off. And having to let other people carry the weight and do the hero stuff that she's not able to do this season, which was great because the actor playing her did a really good job of that.
Yeah, I think Maureen, she's very controlling. Like she has, it's hard for her to let others do stuff because, like I think in her mind, like you just don't know what they're going to do. It's sort of if you want something done right, do it yourself. You can't do everything yourself. You need to.
Your wife ever like take a chore out of your hands because you won't do it the way she wants it done? It's just easier for her to do it herself. That's Maureen to everybody and everything.
Pretty much, yeah. And like kudos to the writers for sort of making her arc be a bit more learning how to trust and work with her family and other people by extension. Yeah, again, like by this season, there's not too much for John and Maureen. They've kind of figured things out between each other, and they're doing good for the most part. They still bounce off of each other like any couple does, but you can really see that they're together and they're working through everything.
So the actress who plays Smith,
Parker Posey.
Surprisingly,
still on Netflix.
Yeah. I thought she did a really, really great job with Smith. Smith, They wrote her less evil as episodes went on from season 1 to 2 to 3, and here, I was wondering what they were going to do with her, because they play around with her giving herself up and everything else, but the overall arc of Smith was, and I talked about this with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm not going to do the Shield thing. But if you remember our 8-hour conversation about Falcon and Winter Soldier, the thing that I said I liked best about that show is it was about redemption. Yeah, that is big with me, and when it's handled well, it resonates with me big time. And that was her thing. It was, yes, I did terrible things and I came from a terrible situation and I probably should be punished, but what are we if we are not a forgiving society that allows people to have an opportunity to right their own ship? And that is her story. And so there's this really great bit towards the end of the season which you're going to have to explain to me, because I'm not entirely, she was about to kill somebody and I don't know why or what the deal is.
He was, I think, the captain or security chief on the Resolute, like the colony ship. Okay. And he found out that he figured out that she was not really Jonah Harris, that she was a stowaway. And I think she might have thrown someone out an airlock. I'm not sure at some point. Yeah. So she was sort of in big trouble. So like, I've covered my tracks up completely, other than this one guy. Right. If he regains consciousness and has his memories intact, he can point at he can make the accusation and offer evidence against me, and then I'm screwed. Right. So if I just give him a lethal injection while he's still unconscious and complications. Right. Then I'm off scot-free. So he's the only threat to her safety on the planet, because the Robinsons have said, we're not going to do anything to help or hurt you here. We're just gonna we're gonna let karma sort it out.
So she nearly goes to kill him, and the robot shows up, and he does, and he's like Yoda. He's just he's like, help, friend, or whatever. And she's like, wait, me? Are you trying to tell me to help someone? I don't understand what's happening here. And the robot
the robot has a very limited vocabulary. He's doing better than Groot, but
basically the robot's like, put the fucking needle down. Let's go. We got shit to do. And so her and then they go off on an adventure with Will. But it's a really great scene, and then they come back to it later when she's telling Will about how the robot saved her from herself, from her worst impulses. Yeah. And I like that. And I liked that even in the end, Maureen and her had kind of a Faramir Frodo moment. I guess we understand each other a little better now, don't we? And it made a little bit more, it made much more sense than it does in the Two Towers. So I liked all of that. I thought, they wrapped her up really, really well. I want to talk really quick about Dawn, and then I'll jump back to you. Yeah. Like, Dawn was always like a kind of a comic relief character. I feel like, and it was like they would try to find hero stuff for him to do, but he was always like the reluctant hero. I thought Dawn did a lot of big time hero stuff in this season and was less jokey, and like he was funny, and he was definitely kind of the roguish Han Solo type, but it wasn't as played up as in previous seasons, where he's more of like a coward and like he doesn't really want to get involved in any of this. He just wants to bootleg gin and whatnot. I thought they wrote him really, really well.
Yeah. So starting off with Smith, I mean, I think I've said this in every podcast. Smith is the hardest character to write, because Smith is supposed to be a menace. Like this, like originally Smith is the saboteur that is responsible for them getting lost in space in the first place. Right. Yet Smith also has to be a regular on the show, and it's, why would you keep this person who's basically out to kill you all? Right. And instead of offing them. And in the original show, like in the 60s, he basically became like just this fop. Like he was sort of comic relief. He gets into trouble due to his own selfish impulses that creates trouble for the Robinsons, but he's not really actively trying to harm them. Right. It's just more out of his own selfishness and ineptitude. And he basically becomes a comedy duo with the robot during the show, which is really great. Like Jonathan Harris, did an amazing job with that part. In the sort of, I forget when it was, like the 99 movie or whenever it came out, which I still have a soft spot for. You have Gary Oldman's Smith, which, hey, Gary Oldman. Sure. But he was far more this Smith is evil, and it like I think it's even a line in the show, like, why don't we kill Smith? Like, we know the moment that he has an advantage, he'd kill a lot of us.
Right.
And then he basically almost does in the movie, like towards the end. It's so you that kind of, and that's an issue that the movie never really resolved. Like Smith never got that redemption moment where you sort of realize that, okay, yeah, I made some mistakes in the past. I'm not that person anymore. I'm still Smith, but I'm not going to actively try and harm the Robinsons at this point.
Right.
And this show kind of this show's incarnation of Smith. She rides the line in between fairly well, where she's more looking out for herself. Like she's more selfish and willing to sell others out to her own benefit. Yeah, she's not trusting of others. Screw them before they screw you. That kind of attitude, and it works. And yeah, it's a fine line to balance. And you think a lot of the time, it is their own sense of morality that keeps her alive. Like, well,
right.
we can't kill her because that's just not a good thing to do. But we also don't want her. We know not to trust her once they figure out that she's lying. And her skill set does come in handy at times where she's able to.
Parker poses a lot of really funny line deliveries, because I think there's 2 or 3 different instances where she has to fly the Jupiter, and everyone's like, "You're flying the Jupiter." She's like, "I can fly."
Yeah. Well, I kind of like how she's like, "Let me fly the Jupiter." It's like, no, like we're not going to do it. We're going to let this pilot. It's like he's 20 years out of date. It's like he's still an ace pilot. Like, and then you get the end, like, who's flying the ship? And she's like, Dr. Smith is like, yay, it's me! Finally, I get to pilot the damn ship. But and then you kind of get the things where they're trying to put her in cryo sleep because there's not enough oxygen for everyone on board the ship.
Oh my God. If there was any moment, like not when the robot sacrificed itself, not when Will got stabbed, there was not a lot of believable tension for me. Like I was enjoying it and I wanted to see how things would get resolved, but I never had that. We're going to talk about this on Monday with Cobra Kai, where there are moments in Cobra Kai where I have no idea where this is going, and I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, oh my God, this could go either way. I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm watching Lost in Space, and most of it I'm like, the robot will be fine. Will be fine. This will all resolve itself. They're going to get through this. They're not all going to die. It'll be fine. How are we going to do it, though? And
yeah.
and here's the thing, like, with Parker Posey's character this season, there was something that she did where it was the cryosleep thing. Jesus, sorry, it's late.
Yeah, where she's worried that if they put her in cryosleep, they're not going to wake her up.
I not so much that. I was legitimately concerned for every other kid on that Jupiter. That I'm like, oh my God, some kid's gonna end up in there. Like, there's no way she agrees to this. Like, she's got a plan, and I'm on the edge of my seat, going, how are they gonna do this? What horrors are going to be unveiled?
Yeah,
it makes trapped in the cryo chamber.
Yeah, it makes sense for the character without her being actively evil.
Yeah. And then she goes in, though, and like she just kind of has that tete-a-tete with Will about it. And then the best part is Will does wake her up. Will honors his bargain and wakes her up. She's like, oh, are we on Alpha Centauri? No, we're in danger and I need your help. And she's like, ugh, just put me back.
Yeah. It's like, of course we are.
Yep. It's great stuff. Well, we've got time enough for one more thing if you want to talk about it, so I'll let you have the last word.
Okay, I guess, Don, well, originally Don was the military, like person on the ship. He wasn't a member of the Robinson family, and I think he was in a relationship with Judy, which they didn't do this time. Like, Don has changed quite a bit, which I don't really mind. Again, Lost in Space, I think, is just one of those franchises where it can have multiple incarnations. There's not really a canonical version of it.
Right.
So I thought Dawn was fine here. I mean, they kind of used the chicken thing a little too much in the end. It's like, oh, we need to find Dawn. Where could he be? He's like, with the damn chicken. He's always with the damn chicken. But I guess I was kind of surprised that when Sar met up with him and scanned him, he didn't try and like lure Sar into like stepping in one of the pits or the goo piles that eats things. Like that would have been sort of a clever outthink the enemy.
They make him a capable mechanic, but that's about all he's.
Yeah, and a skilled smuggler. Yeah, I mean, it was a different character, and he had a useful set of skills and like perspectives that rounded out the cast nicely. And I think they used him the right amount where he never got too much.
I will tell you this. When that scene where they're going after the engine or what they think is the engine, and they're in this giant sandstorm. I bought that maybe we're going to lose Don in that scene.
Yeah,
I thought he was a goner.
Yeah, he's not essential to the show. He doesn't have plot armor, but I think the one thing I found interesting was like just the character of Sar, where I kind of wish we learned a bit more about him. It was kind of nice. We actually got that one scene where it's him talking with the robot in the cave, and they actually subtitle what they're saying. It's like, oh, now I actually understand a bit more of what's going on with the robots. But sort of Sar has this, as near as we can tell, it's, he doesn't want to be controlled by any other beings. Like he wants to break his programming.
And that tracks.
Oh yeah, that tracks. The funny thing is, it's like whenever any of the other robots do anything he doesn't like, he violently murders them. Like rips heads off and
they're not ambiguous about him being the big villain of this. And we were talking about Smith. Smith was the big villain of season 1, but once the robots became a bigger deal, Smith just becomes a sort of chaotic, neutral character to deal with. She's not the robots are the big menace. Yeah, and I kind of wish they delved a bit more into SAR's philosophy or ideology, and like why it is the way it is. Like a bit more going into the killing the master. I don't need like a whole spin-off series chronicling the civilization, but it's just more like so your thing is you want to break programming, you want free will or something like that, which as near as I can tell you do have. But then when any of the other robots gets the same thing and they don't do what you want them to do, you murder them. So it's hypocrisy much. Well, I was gonna say it's like politics where, and both sides do this, it's like we want the freedom of choice of this particular thing that's important to us, and we want you to not have the choice for the thing that you like.
Yeah, we think freedom of speech is important unless you say things I don't like.
Right.
Yeah, or you need to listen to diverse voices, but only if they agree with me.
Right. It's my body, my choice, except that if it has to do with, vaccinations that were rushed or abortion.
Yeah. And again, we're not here to go dive deep into those rabbit holes.
I gave 2 diametric opposing viewpoints.
Yeah.
To make a point, to illustrate a point.
Yeah. We're keeping this apolitical as much as possible for the record, everyone. But
yes.
So I kind of think it would have been a bit more interesting to sort of delve into.
That's why I raised that point. It's like no, I want freedom from me, and for the rest of you to follow me.
It's like that's not how it works, buddy.
Yeah, no, but that's great. But that's what makes him a really great villain is that there's nothing about Sar to feel sympathy towards. You just want him to be defeated. Yeah, like an interesting way they could have done it is like Will gets the ability to control the robots from recording the sounds in the chamber, and then like at the end battle, like instead of using it, he basically throws it away and says, I'm not going to be the masters like the masters were. Like they're they're dead now. I'm just going to have to trust that. We can build something new. I mean, I'm okay with the way that it was. I think it was very strong the way that it was. With Penny saving some of the robots and them turning on Sar. And Sar being summarily defeated by the entire cast as they were projecting death metal at him, whale sounds, whatever it was, and then him going after Will, and then Will because he was touched by the robot.
Yeah, the robot puts something on his artificial heart, like part of himself. So when Sar stabbed it, he basically transferred his backup consciousness or whatever it is into Sar, overwriting Sar.
It was very Spock, wasn't it? That Spock
kind of
the end of Wrath of Khan and into the search for Spock, where he put his car,
Katra, I think it was called. It's not really that important.
No. That's why I'm being silly about it. But like he puts his soul into McCoy, and McCoy's just carrying it around, and he's sort of just split personality there for a while, and then he puts it back into Spock's grown-up body again. It was very much that sort of thing. And there's a part of me that wants to yell, contrived. It's the way they brought the robot back and have a happy ending, except that it was a happy ending, and I was satisfied. And I'm not going to sit there and tear it down because they couldn't be cleverer. Like it was just fine.
Yeah, like the show is very good at it. Actually does a good job of subverting expectations, but having that contribute to the story. It's kind of like the Trey Parker, Matt Stone way of writing, where everything that happens needs to be connected by either therefore or but.
I was gonna say the strength of Lost in Space, besides that it's pure science fiction for those of you who like that sort of thing, is also every decision that gets made, every bit of plot and story feels organic and earned.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a moment of, oh, they put that in there for chicks and giggles.
Or put that in there just to get to the next scene, or because it would look cool in the trailer.
Right.
Yeah. Like the characters' decisions have actual consequences.
This doesn't feel like somebody's therapeutic exercise. This doesn't feel like it was agenda driven. It feels like people who were really invested in wanting to tell a great pure science fiction story. And on the one hand, like I don't want it to go because it's one of the better shows on television, and I feel like there's so there's so little of that. There's some stuff that before we started tonight, the guys over on the Bleeding Edge, which Alexis who's on our shows usually is guesting on, like their number one pick for like Marvel property of the year was WandaVision, and God bless them, but I mean, it made me want to eat a gun.
I understand your issues with WandaVision.
I
wasn't on that one, but I listened to it.
Yeah, I like look. Not saying there wasn't great things about it. There was, but but it's not perfect, and it certainly wasn't the best Marvel thing this year. And yet, and it's not just them. There's plenty of other people who thought WandaVision was fantastic, and it's like, no. This is fantastic. WandaVision was fine.
Yeah.
And so just as a comparison, I could have said that about any show, but that just happened to be on my mind. My point is, so like I wish there was more like Lost in Space, and I wish there was more Lost in Space and less WandaVision, but that's just not the TV landscape right now. On the other hand, and this funny, I mentioned this on the Metal Hammer of Doom. We briefly talked about Odd Taxi, and I'd read somewhere that they were contemplating an Odd Taxi season 2, and I'm like howling at the moon, please don't. That story's done. The story was told. It wrapped up wonderfully. We don't need to see any more of this story. Please write something new. And that's where I landed with Lost in Space. Like, they defeated the robots. They landed on Alpha Centauri. The family has grown. Everything is wonderful. The story is told. I'm done with this now. Move on to something else. But move on to something else of equal or greater value, please. Let's not doing drivel.
Yeah, it's the meat and potatoes of the writing of this are rock solid.
For sure.
Yeah, like strong character development. The characters, their decisions all make sense in the situations they're put into. Very little feels contrived or shoehorned in there just because. It feels like an organic story with real characters who act like real people would in those situations and would most likely be in those situations. And it all progresses over the course of the show and ends in a very satisfying way. And then they get a little bit of the action in there too. And it's a breath of fresh air where like it's all just content. Who cares if like the actual writing's good? Everyone's looking at their cell phones anyway. I'm just gonna throw in, whatever I think looks cool.
There was no blue light in the sky. There was no two people with the same powers throwing fireballs at each other.
It just seems like just a nice, well-written little show. And
nobody tried to end the show with a big speech.
No speeches, no voiceovers. Thank goodness. Voiceovers in science fiction these days are just terrible. Just please stop doing them. They don't work. They don't add anything to the stories. They just sound like a bunch of pretentious nonsense.
I mean, it might have been better if somebody just yelled into a microphone, "The spice must flow." But aside from that,
but no, like this definitely goes in the category of like good TV science fiction. Yeah. Like I'm sure like in a decade or so there'll be another rebooted version of Lost in Space, and hey, I'm curious to see what they do with that version. Hopefully it'll be good. I hope that this team they move on and they do something else, like another sci-fi show on streaming or something, and then we can enjoy that too. Because we need more of this. And I think like we've got like 1 week left before The Expanse wraps up on Amazon, and that's kind of like the only other sort of like real sort of smart, well written sci-fi show I can think of at this time. That's
okay. Well, I know that's one thing that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
We'll get to it eventually.
It's in the queue.
It's in the queue. All right, that's it. That's our wrap up of Lost in Space season 3. I mentioned before, David has been all over me like a cheap suit these past.
You're welcome for that mental image.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm gonna go and floss my brain after this.
He was on the Foundation review. He'll be on Cobra Kai. He'll also be on The Witcher, and Agretzko. So David has been all over the place this month, and
It's a busy month.
Yeah, a lot going on. This past week, yesterday, Evan Bevins, Ronnie Adams, and I did 3 interesting movies that are on streaming services right now. We had Prisoners of Ghostland, which you can find on Shudder, Shadow in the Cloud on Hulu, and Out of Death on Hulu. That was a fun podcast just because they're fun guys to talk to. But those movies, yeesh. I aggravated a lot of people Wednesday night. We reviewed Bandmade Unseen World, and as many times I said, this is great, I like it, I also said it wasn't the most imaginative thing I've ever heard in my life, and then proceeded to get the most listens to we've ever gotten on YouTube, and comments, and hateful comments. So yay.
And if there still is a dislike button, probably the most of those too.
I'm close. We reviewed WWE.
So next week, are you doing BTS?
I should, right? I should mine as much Asian culture I can to piss on it, just to see if I start getting hate mail that you can direct at skarmer@gmail.com. Speaking of which, we reviewed WWE Day 1. That was me and the Podsman. Robert and I can't get a podcast done in less than 2 hours anymore. We reviewed Don't Look Up and Being the Ricardos for 2.5 hours. And then Monday, Sean Comer and I reviewed Titan, El Camino, and Christine, the Strawberry Girl, Christine. Hey, another place where you can find David. Jesse conducted a roundtable of everyone I locked out of the Spider-Man No Way Home review. That was David Wright, Evan Bevins, Benjamin J. Cologne, and the host with the most, Jesse Starcher. And then Sunday, we kicked off the week with 2 podcasts. One was Jesse, Evan, and I reviewing Billionaire Island by Ronnie Adams' favorite writer, Mark Russell. And then myself and Jason Tees reviewed You Season 3. That's 2 shows we finished. 2 shows that, well, You's not done. You's going to be back for a Season 4. Anyway, we reviewed 2 shows this week. You and, what are we doing right now? Lost in Space. Next week, Cobra Kai, The 355, Volbeat, Hitmonkey, The Witcher, and that's it. Plus, we're on the march to Scream 5, so we'll have a 2-part review of the entire Scream franchise, plus some Nightmare on Elm Street and Wes Craven stuff that we've had in the can for the last 5-6 years or so. So look for all that this week on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. All right. Anything else, Dave, before we go?
I think that pretty much covers it. It's a busy month.
It sure is, Ollie. It sure is.
So I hope you all like me out there, because apparently you're going to get a lot of me this week.
You never have enough David Wright. All right.
Thanks. My wife would agree with you there.
I don't know. All right, folks. Thanks for joining us here on TV Party tonight. For David Wright, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.